Hello, thank you for listening. This is the near death experience of Heidi, and this experience occurred on May 29th, 2004, and was documented on August 12th of 2017, open quote. I need to start by saying that I was born with double pneumonia and did not get to go home until six weeks after I was born. It is possible that I had a near death experience then, but don't remember. I don't have many memories of when I was a child, but I do remember feeling scared almost all of the time. My dad physically, mentally, and verbally abused my mom. I do remember one incident vividly when I was 5 or 6 years old. I was standing in the doorway that connected the living room to the kitchen. When you walked into the kitchen, to the right was the dining room table and a door that led out to the garage where my mom was standing. To the left was the kitchen that had an island with a row of cabinets underneath that held the pots and pans where my dad was standing. My parents were fighting. My dad was going crazy. He started picking up the small appliances off the island counter and throwing at my mom. He threw the toaster, the can opener, the blender, the multiple pots and pans. My mom was dodging the items as he was throwing them at her, crying and pleading with him to stop. He threw them with such force that when they hit the door, they left dents. I remember crying and feeling like my dad was going to kill my mom. Many, many years later, I went back to that house and the door was still there with all the dents in it. I was 6 years old when my parents got divorced. My mom was married and divorced 6 times while I was growing up, and we moved a lot. We lived in 4 different states and numerous cities, which meant I attended a lot of different schools. Because I was a sensitive child and a people pleaser, I was an easy target for being bullied in grade school through high school. When I was 7, I had the 8-year-old daughter of the woman that my dad was dating come to me and my twin brother. They told us that my dad was hurting her. I remember crying with her and telling her that it was going to be okay. We were all confused and scared of my dad. We didn't know what to do, so we didn't tell anyone. When I was 13 years old, I found out why my parents divorced. My father had molested my 2 older half sisters, which validated what I already knew. My dad was a pedophile. When I was 14 years old, I found out that my dad had remarried and that I had 2 younger stepsisters and a new baby half sister. I also found out that I had 2 other half siblings that I was not aware of: Karen, who was 6 months older than me, and Jerry Jr., who was 2 years older than me. I always had a nagging feeling in the back of my mind that my dad may be hurting my stepsisters, so when I was 19, I came up with a plan. I asked if I could visit, and I took the girls to the park. At the park, I asked both my stepsisters separately if dad had ever hurt them. They both told me no. Once again, I choose to ignore the signals and signs and went on living my life. That was the last time I saw them. When I was 26 years old, I married a high functioning alcoholic, narcissist, and a womanizer. Deep down inside, I knew those things about him, but I chose not to see. I ignored the signs because I wanted so desperately to have a family of my own and security. I was married to him for 11 years, and during that time, I endured emotional, mental, and verbal abuse. But I do not regret it because I have 3 beautiful, amazing boys. In 1999, I was pregnant with my first son. I found out that my father was found guilty of child molestation. He was sentenced for 44 years as a convicted pedophile, the maximum sentence for the charges in the state that he was convicted in at the time. He is due for mandatory release on 8/28/2036. Because I was in preterm labor and on bed rest, my family did not tell me about the trial until his sentencing because they were afraid that I would deliver early. In 2002, I had my second beautiful son. The pregnancy and delivery were normal and went beautifully. I was baptized Catholic and raised Lutheran. This will make more sense to you after I talk about my NDE. It was May 29th, 2004, on Memorial Day weekend. It was a beautiful, warm, and sunny day. I woke up that morning in labor. This labor was different from my previous 2 pregnancies in that whenever I sat or lay down, I was in immense pain. I ate my breakfast standing up. On the ride to the hospital, I propped myself up with my arms in order to alleviate some of the pain. When we arrived at the hospital, I was required to sit in a wheelchair to be admitted, even though I told the staff I couldn't sit because of the pain. We finally made it to the delivery room. I was standing at the side of the bed and breathing through a contraction when my water broke. At that point, the nurse told me that both doctors on duty were doing C-sections, delivering twins, and she would be delivering my baby. I knew in that moment that something was wrong. I don't know how I knew, but I knew. She proceeded to tell me that if I wanted to have this baby, that I needed to lie down. I told her that I wanted to deliver standing up, and she told me absolutely not. So I lay down, and the pain was excruciating. I just wanted the baby out because I felt like I was dying. The nurse told me I could push, and a couple of pushes later, my beautiful son was born. They placed him on my chest. I got to hold him, gave him a kiss, and tell him I loved him before they took him away to clean him up and check his vitals. The nurse then told me to push again to deliver the placenta. I pushed, and nothing happened. She told me to push again, and still nothing happened. She told me to push again, and this time she pulled on the umbilical cord at the same time. The pain shot through my body. She tried it again by pulling on the umbilical cord, and again the pain was horrendous. At that point, the energy in the room changed. Everyone was serious and moving quickly. I heard the nurse page the doctor. I don't know how much time passed before the doctor entered the room, but as soon as he arrived, he spoke quickly and very quietly to the nurse. Then he came over to me and pulled on the umbilical cord. The second time he pulled on the umbilical cord, it came off. So I had the placenta inside me and no cord attached. At that point, he reached inside me and tried to pull the placenta out. He tried 3 or 4 times. I was crying and begging him to stop, so he stopped. He called in the anesthesiologist, who gave me a tablet to dissolve under my tongue. He said it would help with the pain, but it didn't. The doctor made the decision to take me to the operating room to remove the placenta because I was bleeding out. When they were rolling me out of the delivery room to the operating table, I looked at my husband and told him not to leave the baby and to stay with him no matter what. As they rolled me into the operating room, my first thought was that it didn't look like what you see on TV. It was very small, sterile, and silver. The scene was surreal. As the anesthesiologist was placing the oxygen mask over my face and telling me to count backwards from 50, I thought to myself, do not go to sleep. Stay awake. The next thing I know, I woke up in heaven, or what I call home. I had no body, but I was me. I was surrounded by angels, loved ones, Jesus, Mother Mary, and God. We were all part of this radiant, warm, and beautiful light. We were all connected, and we were all one. The oneness was deeply profound and breathtaking. They were there, loving and supporting me. The light was the most beautiful, white, golden light. I felt immense happiness, contentment, peace, warmth, and love. The light was bubbly, sparkling, and effervescent like champagne. There are no words to really express or articulate how I felt or to describe the beautiful light and warmth that I was bathed in. The colors and feelings were 1,000,000 times magnified. The first feeling I had was that of being unconditionally loved. I say feeling because it was more than just a thought. I truly, deeply, and profoundly felt the love through my entire being. No words were spoken and everything was communicated by thought. My questions were answered before I could finish my thought. In fact, they were answered as I started thinking about the question. I kept feeling and receiving three messages over and over again. I received these messages separately, but at the same time. Time as we know it does not exist there as it does here. The messages that I received were that I was unconditionally loved, that everything is always how it's supposed to be, and that everything would always be all right. I knew that if I didn't go back to to my children, I knew if I didn't go back that my children, husband, family, and friends would be okay. I wanted to stay, but I was not given the option to stay. I woke up with the doctor yelling at me to wake up and open my eyes. The warmth and light were gone, and I was cold. I was angry to be back in my body and back in the physical world. I was angry at the doctor for being so mean when he was waking me up and the fact that he woke me up. I wanted to go back home. The next morning in the recovery room, I told my husband what happened. I'll never forget the way he looked at me. It was a look of embarrassment and shame. He told me that I was crazy and that it had to have been a dream. In that moment, I decided not to tell anyone, because if my husband didn't believe me, then who would? It would be 6 or 7 years before I finally told someone about my NDE. Later that morning, a hospital official in a suit and tie and carrying a clipboard filled with papers came into my room and asked me if I remembered anything. I glanced at my husband, who shook his head. I told the official that I didn't remember anything. He handed me the clipboard and asked me to sign some papers, which I didn't even look at, and he left. I thought the entire exchange was odd because that didn't happen after my first 2 deliveries. I knew that something happened, and I found out what it was 10 years later when I ordered my medical records. My heart stopped in the operating room. The medical reports stated that I had complications due to a heart disease called mitral valve prolapse, MVP. MVP is when the leaflets of the mitral valves prolapse into the heart's left atrium like a parachute during the heart's contraction. I find it interesting that the doctors and hospital did not tell me that my heart stopped, and it explains the hospital official asking me if I remembered anything. I went into a depression, and for the first couple of weeks after my NDE, I wanted to go home. I felt guilty and ashamed because I had 3 beautiful babies to take care of. To me, my real home is in the spiritual/soul world, where there was no judgment, no suffering, no disapproval, just pure joy, creativity, peace, and love. I had been through so many challenging times leading up to my NDE, and after years of feeling lost, alone, and giving up hope, I no longer had faith. I had become disillusioned. But after my NDE, I knew that even in my darkest hour, when I felt isolated and separated, that I was never alone. I knew that I was loved beyond measure. I had hope again. My life changed drastically after my NDE. I started making positive changes in my life. I started to figure out who I was as a person, what I liked, what I wanted, and most importantly, that I needed to love myself. When I started to realize that I was a worthy and deserving of love, I started to change. For some of my friends and family, it was too much of a change. I lost some of my family and friends along the way. After years of being the primary income earner and supporting our family, I finally took a stand with my husband. I told him he had to get a job that earned more money, either in Colorado, where my family was from, or Santa Barbara, where his family was from. We needed help with the children and had a family support. 2 years after my NDE, we moved to Santa Barbara because my husband was offered a media relations job. 3 years after my NDE, I filed for divorce after my husband cheated on me with my longtime best friend. I had finally had enough. In 2007, after my divorce, I was laid off from my job as they had outsourced their entire mortgage division. In 2009, I lost my job for a second time. On March 28, 2011, I received a call that my mom had a stroke and that she had 2 hours to 2 weeks to live. She passed away 2 days later on 3/30/2009. On March 26, 2012, my cat, Rias, who I had for 19 years, passed away from old age. On March 26, 2013, my dog Lily, who was 7 years old, passed away from a stroke. In December of 2013, I was laid off for a third time as they shut down multiple mortgage divisions throughout California. In March of 2014, I started as a credit analyst on a temporary basis with no benefits. I took an $11 pay cut because I was going into an entry-level position as a credit analyst. In September 2014, I received a letter from my landlord that my rent was going up from $200 a month. I didn't know how I was going to pay the rent, let alone the bills. I had used all of my savings and cashed out my retirement to help supplement my income over the years. With the rent increase, I was in financial distress. That evening, I fell to my knees, crying and praying to God. In that moment of despair, I clearly heard the 3 messages that I received during my NDE, and I just knew, all caps, that everything would be okay. The next morning, I woke up and found an affordable apartment. I had been looking for a new place to live since December and had thought that I was going to have to live out of my car. In March of 2015, I was hired on permanently, which included a raise and benefits. I know that my experience was a gift, and the messages that I received continued to guide me and help me get through this life. I do believe that we are all one and that we are all connected. Yes, I've had a life full of obstacles, but I have never been happier or content with my life than I am right now. I may not have had it all, but I most definitely am surrounded by wonderful, supportive, and loving family and friends, and that makes what I don't have less important. I now have hope in the face of challenges, hardships, and loss, and I never lose sight of the light. I know that I'm never alone because I am unconditionally loved. I know that everything is always as it's supposed to be, and even in my darkest moments, I know that everything will be okay. It might not be tonight, tomorrow, or the next day, but it'll be okay. I know that giving back is extremely important, and I volunteer when I can. And in 2014, I started writing a book about my life with the hope that it will help at least one person. I have learned that you have to trust your intuition no matter what, and listen to that voice, to trust that thought, and do what you have to do. I have learned that your past does not define you. Is not a life sentence, but it was a life lesson. I have learned that we have to protect the children. If a child ever tells you that they are being hurt, or if you suspect a child is being hurt, do not turn your back on them and do not walk away. Report what you know or suspect to your local authorities or to Child Protective Services. Let that child know that you believe, support, and love them. Give that child hope and let them know that they can trust an adult. Be their advocate, their voice, and their hero. I have learned that you have to love yourself and that there is always something to be thankful for. Everything is okay in the end. If it's not okay, then it's not the end. And most importantly, I have learned that joy is the experience of knowing that you are unconditionally loved and that nothing, not even death, can take that love away. I'd like to leave you with one of my favorite quotes by Helen Keller. Keep your face to the sunshine and you cannot see the shadow. It's what sunflowers do. End quote. End story there, Heidi. That was a great story and such awesome words of wisdom. There are some questions here. I don't know. You went through a lot of it, but let's see what we've got. Question: did you encounter or become aware of any deceased or live beings? Answer: yes. I was surrounded by loved ones who had passed. I was also surrounded by angels. I was aware that my children, family, and friends would always be all right. No matter what, they would be okay, whether I stayed or went back. My loved ones would always be okay. Question: did you see an unearthly light? Answer: yes. The color and feeling of the light is indescribable. We have no words in our vocabulary to accurately describe it and do it justice. It was a beautiful, warm, golden white light. It was encompassing, and we were all a part of it. We were all connected in the light. The light is energy. The light is love. Question: did scenes from the future come to you? Answer: I had a complete and total awareness that my children, family, and friends would always be okay. I don't know how to explain or articulate this to you. Question: what importance did you place on your religious/spiritual life prior to your experience? Answer: not important to me. Question: what was your religion prior to your experience? Answer: unaffiliated, nothing in particular. I was baptized Catholic, but raised in the Lutheran Church. At the time of my experience, I was not practicing religion. Question: have your religious practices changed since your experience? Answer: yes. I no longer believe in organized religion. Question: what importance do you place on your religious/spiritual life after your experience? Answer: greatly important to me. Question: what is your religion now? Answer: other faith/new age. I no longer believe in organized religion. Question: did your experience include features consistent with your earthly beliefs? Answer: content was consistent and inconsistent. Before my experience, I was not sure about how I really felt about organized religion. After my experience, I no longer believed in organized religion. Before my experience, I was labeled overly sensitive, but after my experience, I knew that it was a gift and that there was nothing wrong with me. Question: did you have a change in your values and beliefs because of your experience? Answer: yes. Before my experience, I felt unworthy and unlovable. After my experience, I know that I am unconditionally loved and that I am never alone. Question: did you seem to encounter a mystical being or presence or hear an unidentifiable voice? Answer: I was surrounded by beings, angels, loved ones, and God. When I had a question, it was immediately answered even before I could finish asking the question. All communication was done by thought. During your experience, did you gain information about pre-mortal existence? Answer: yes. I don't remember specific information, but I had complete understanding and knew that we had lived multiple lives. Again, this is hard for me to articulate. During your experience, did you gain information about universal connection or oneness? Answer: yes. We are all a part of the light. The light is energy. We are energy. We are all connected. We are all one. The light is love and God. Question: during your experience, did you gain information about the existence of God? Answer: yes. I was surrounded by God. The light is love. The light is God. We are all connected. We are all one. Question: during your experience, did you gain special knowledge or information about your purpose? Answer: yes. I feel other people's emotions and I can feel their pain. I have studied energy healing and have the ability to help people. Question: do you believe in an afterlife after your existence? Answer: yes. Our souls continue on. We shed our physical bodies, but our souls are still very much alive. We continue. Question: during your experience, did you gain information about life's difficulties, challenges, and hardships? Answer: yes. We are here to learn lessons so that our souls can grow. Probably. Question: during your experience, did you gain information about love? Answer: yes. We are here to learn lessons so that our souls can grow. Okay, that's the same answer as before, except, yeah, to learn lessons. Question: what life changes occurred in your life after your experience? Answer: large changes. Spirituality is important to me, but not religion. Question: have your relationships changed specifically because of your experience? Answer: yes. I cut a lot of people out of my life that were toxic to me, and I lost some people because I have changed. Question: was the experience difficult to express in words? Answer: yes. Again, there are no words in our vocabulary to explain the feelings, thoughts, colors, and time. Time there does not exist how it does here. Question: do you have any psychic, non-ordinary, or other special gifts after your experience that you did not have before the experience? Answer: yes. I'm empathic and can sense how people feel and if they are lying to me. I can sense other people's pain. I can receive messages through tarot cards by running my hand over the cards and feel energy of the card I'm supposed to draw for the message. I am also very accurate using a pendulum. Question: are there one or several parts of your experience that are especially meaningful or significant to you? Answer: the feeling of unconditional love, joy, and happiness. The three messages I received. Question: have you ever shared this experience with others? Answer: yes. It took me 6 to 7 years after my NDE occurred to share it. I only shared it with close family, and I don't think they believed me. Question: what did you believe about the reality of your experience shortly after it happened? Answer: experience was definitely real. I never doubted the experience was real, even when my ex-husband told me I was crazy. Question: and what do you believe about the reality of your experience now? Answer: I believe it was real with no doubt in my mind or heart. End quote. End questions. Thank you, Heidi, for sharing that. And what an experience and what a journey. Appreciate that. And thank you for listening. I hope you guys have a great day.